All right, let's bring in Joey Wagner for our weekly six-pack of questions leading into the Illini game. This one against Central Michigan, and 11 a.m. kickoff. Celebrate, Joey. We got an 11 a.m. kickoff. All the fans may hate it. Not all, but most. I understand why, but we get home maybe around like 5, 6, 7 o'clock and watch some college football. I'm looking forward to this.
I've officially hit Jeremy Werner years old. I used to dread 11 a.m. kickoff as someone who likes to sleep in. Staying up late wasn't a big deal. I'm Werner old now. I enjoy getting to bed earlier, getting up earlier. So I'm very much looking forward to this and some breakfast food. And by the way, Jeremy, it's now called the 6-pack 12 of questions, by the way.
6-pack 12 of questions?
Pac-12. Did you not follow the news, Jeremy? The Pac-12 has 6 teams now. We'll get you there. I know how game weeks go. You're so far buried in your work.
Going so far into the Central Michigan wormhole on YouTube. No, like good. Make that conference fun, right? Like just get all these fun West Coast, like bring Montana in there. I saw somebody put the Dakotas in there. Like just have a fun West Coast conference and call it the Pac-12 and get a decent TV deal. And just that could end up being like one of the most fun things. Like Washington State and Oregon State fans might have a lot of fun in that league because they might win a lot.
Do you think the new Pac-12 is like watching this Bill of Rights deal or grant of rights deal at the ACC? Like, yes, Clemson, Florida State, fight out of there. Then you just bring Cal and Stanford back?
Yeah, I think Cal and Stanford should go back. I think the Big Ten should bring Stanford in. Cal doesn't really add anything for me, but I still think Stanford has a lot of value as a West Coast team academically. I just think that culturally they fit. And they give you just a 5-team West Coast division. And I'm thinking future of divisions. So I would like that. But does the Mountain West, like, do they get part of it? Like, how does this all happen? Because it's basically they're going to take over the entire Mountain West, I would imagine, at some point.
The Mountain West, Ohio Valley, Big South Conference.
It's going to have ripple effects all the way down there. But for me, it should be like the Pac-12 conference brought to you by the Mountain West or something like that.
Yeah.
No. All right, but Illinois' got a game. Let's talk about the Illinois Angles. We got a great breakdown from Central Michigan's play-by-play man here. But, Joey, let's kind of look back at what the Kansas game was. And our first question is, what is the biggest impact of that Kansas win for Illinois?
Outside of the program, because I think they would tell you they've had this throughout, belief. You have people, you have a fan base that, I would assume for 2 weeks, I think they'll beat Central Michigan this week, who believe that this program has taken a step forward and has set itself up. The second impact there, set yourself up better for a bowl game, right? Like that matters, but you have people who believe. You saw what this fan base can be on Saturday at a sold-out Memorial Stadium. It was a great atmosphere. As our friend Lauren Tate said, they're all here in the fourth quarter, right? Like you've seen early crowds, big crowds early kind of dissipate. Close game helps. Big moment helps. You have people who believe, and this fan base, when it believes, can really help elevate that program. When you look at toss-up games at home, right? Your Purdue's, your Michigan State's, like belief matters. And to kind of cultivate that early with 10 to go, it's a huge deal, man. And I know Illinois will tell you they believed in this the whole time. They saw this from whenever to wherever, right? But like to have the fans buy in, you haven't seen that this early, Jeremy, in some time.
Yeah, and you think of all the things that could happen if they win this game against Central Michigan, Joey. But like my answer is kind of, well, it depends on what you do from here. Because if you beat Kansas and for some reason lost to Central Michigan, all that goodwill is gone. But if you beat Central Michigan and you go undefeated non-conference play and you start 3-0 for the first time since 2011 and you become ranked in September for the first time since 2011, that's real momentum. And I mean, there's the real thing here where you're halfway to a bowl game. You only need 3 of your last 9 games to get to a bowl game. That is significant because 6 wins was the measure of success. And given that you have 4 out of the next 5 opponents are ranked, like that's still going to be difficult to get to a certain amount of wins. So if you can't end 3-0, that's huge for there. But really, Joe, what was great about the Kansas win, if I'm in Illinois, in that Illinois football department or just a fan, is I can win in multiple ways. I can win with defense. I thought coming into this year, they need to score 30 points most of the time to win games. And they just held a Kansas offense that I think will be very good. they held them to 17 points. I think Kansas had something to do with that. I think Jalen Daniels having his worst game as a starter probably at Kansas is something to do with that. But Illinois had a lot to do with that. The way they've defended, the game plan of containing him rather than pass rushing him worked out because it made him a pocket passer. They did run the ball well, but at least you forced them into long drives. You tackled pretty well for most of that game. So really the defense gave them a chance to win this game. The offense found a way to go win it at the end. So I do think the fact that this team can win multiple ways, that maybe it is a balance between offense and defense, when I thought this was going to be more of an offense heavy team, Joey.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I'd have to go back and look at what we all predicted in the preview and picks, where there was only 2 undefeated teams now, Jeremy, you being one of them. I think we all probably predicted a high-scoring game in this, right? Like, why would we have believed in the defense, given what we saw a year ago and not learning much against CIU, to come out with that performance? So to show that you can maybe blend, I'm not saying you're the 2022 defense, right? But that you can maybe blend elements of winning defensively with, hey, this quarterback can also throw it pretty far, pretty accurately and often. Like, to kind of merge those two things, I think that's encouraging, right? Like, and you saw a little bit of that at times in 2022, and really not at all last year. I was going to say,
well, I mean, the Maryland,
Toledo versus Indiana, Minnesota, right? Like, you kind of blend those two ideas, but I think you could probably do it more effectively this year than you did last year. So to have your defense be something that, if you have to count on it, you feel like you can, it's probably about what we're getting at here, Jeremy. That is very, very encouraging.
Yeah, and of course, the other part here, Joey, is ticket sales. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, it's Central Michigan, right? Like, I don't know how many tickets you're going to sell. Like, if you got over 50,000, I know it's a homecoming game, but if you got over 50,000, I think that'd be a big success. We'll see what they are. I haven't really reached out to anybody yet about what ticket sales will be. But I think if you win this game and you find a way to win one of those on the road, you come back to that Purdue game, think you might have a chance to sell out. That Michigan game, I think you really would have a chance to sell out. And then recruiting, man, like, they went kind of all in on that weekend, got all these top junior prospects from in-state here, and to have that win, for them to experience that crowd and that celebration and that win over a ranked opponent, I don't know if it gets you a commit, like, directly, right? But that memory will be indelible in their minds of, like, they were around that. They were part of something that looked cool. And it looked like this is a program, again, that is progressing, that is getting better. And that if I come here, we can take it to another level. So I do think that matters a big part in recruiting, again, if you continue to follow it up throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, look cool, look possible, right? Like, I think that is, like, you can't overlook that. Is why the venue of this win was just as much of a factor as actually winning. Like, you didn't go and upset Penn State at Penn State. You didn't go and win at Minnesota. Like, you did it at home, where you had guys there to see that happen and to kind of see what a full-throated endorsement from this fan base looks like, right? Like, that to me is everything. I don't know. You're right. I don't know that one kid got home on Saturday night or Sunday morning was like, that's it. That's the one, right? But it doesn't hurt. And it shows that, like, this is possible. This isn't Brett Bielema and his coaching staff getting there early 2021 and selling maybes and, what we've done at other stops. It's like, hey, look, we're able to do this here. Like, you can pitch it. You're able to do this in Champaign. You saw it all happen up close and personal. You saw that feeling in the locker room after the game and realized that, like, yeah, all this talk, like, maybe it's starting to manifest a little bit more. And these fans will buy in. When this is manifested, these fans are ready to go. I've said that forever, right? You've said it forever. Fans want to jump on board, but they've just been given 100 reasons not to for far too long.
Yeah, and they wanted to jump on board last year, and then 2-4 starts the season, right? Like, but if you look at the Brett Bielema tenure, it's been better. Like, it has been so much better than what he had before. And if you can have a 7+ win season, these kids can sit there and go, well, Wisconsin and Iowa does every year. Like, Illinois can do that under Brett Bielema. Like, they did that 2 years ago. They could do it this year. Like, if you're able to put 2 of those 3 years together and say, man, we just missed out 4 years ago. We just missed out a year ago of making a bowl game. Like, we are here. Like, we consistently get NFL guys now. We consistently get guys to the NFL. oh, the crowds are behind us, the NIL can be really good here, and we win games consistently, then all of a sudden you maybe can be that middle of the pack Big Ten team where Wisconsin and Iowa are kind of that second class, probably, right? Like, I think there's a path for Illinois to be there. And if you can continue to build on this, maybe you can show other players that you can do that.
Yeah. Can we say, we know how big that win was? We've seen MAC teams come into Champaign and either put the fear of God in Illinois or outright beat them. We are 10 minutes into this. We have not talked about that as a possibility, like as a realistic thing that could happen on Saturday with Central Michigan. Like, you talk about the program being better. You don't sweat bullets when MAC teams come in anymore, right? Like, I know what Toledo did a year ago. That Toledo team was really good. Illinois also maybe wasn't. But, like, you don't fret like that. It's not like, oh, God, Eastern Michigan, oh, my, they're going to come in here. Like, that, the presentation of this program matters too. And I think the fact that we're not sitting here listing all the reasons that Illinois would lose or could possibly lose to Central Michigan on Saturday within the first 11 minutes of talking is also significant.
Now, I still think that there's a chance that Central Michigan could surprise you because Northern Illinois, they did, right? Like, if Illinois has its worst game, they are capable of losing. But yes, you walk into this game against a MAC opponent, a 20-point favorite. I haven't done the research, Joey, but I feel like every MAC opponent they've had here recently has been 10 or under, right? As an underdog. So I guess that's a step forward for Illinois.
Also, Northern Illinois, and what we now learn is close friend or decent friend Thomas Hammock and Brett Bielema. Best thing that could happen to Brett Bielema this week, right?
Sure.
Like, he saw that, probably happy for his friend, was also like, all right, keep my guys focused for this week. Like, that worked out perfectly for him.
That might be my lead for previewing picks. So that is coming up. This is a perfect example of don't let this be a trap game. Don't overlook the MAC, because look what just happened in South Bend. Yes, Brett Bielema could not have written that any better. All right, number 2, Joey. Which Illinois players have most exceeded your expectations through 2 games? So you give one, I'll give one, and if you got a couple more, we can go.
Do you want to go offense, defense? Is that fair?
I have mostly defense. So I have one offensive player listed on this. So
all right,
probably we'll have the same offensive guy, but go ahead.
I feel like there should be more defensively, but I was reading this. I also did not do my work before I went to media this morning. So I'll stick with offense. I know you got a list of defense. Melvin Priestley.
That's who I got.
You don't have to worry. Right tackle was a total wreck a year ago. It was, and that's not trying to call out Zy Chrysler. He didn't practice enough. He's probably not a tackle in the Big Ten, and they just could not find the right answer. Isaiah Adams is a guard. You've seen that play out. You don't sweat your tackles, man.
Yep.
You know that J.C. Davis, I don't have a lot more to add on J.C. Davis. It's like, yep, kind of what we thought it was going to be, right? He's awfully good in pass protection. Don't sweat the left side. Melvin Priestley being a good right tackle through 2 games helps so much on this offensive line, because if he's not good, or I mean, he's beyond serviceable at this point, plus with what we've seen on the interior, now you're kind of like, oh, they've got to get 4 or 5 positions cleaned up here, and you've got your 2 bookend spots on that line spoken for and playing at a high level. That is massive, Jeremy.
Their tackle play has been great. I mean, you said Melvin Priestley's been good. He's been great. Right now, PFF, not the end all be all, but they have him as the number 2 offensive tackle in the country right now. That's all FBS. The other one's Kansas, is Logan Brown, by the way, who was really good the other day. 90.5 run block grade, Joey. He's allowed 3 pressures, but no sacks. So he's been better in pass blocking than I thought he would be. Now, he's got bigger tests. Nebraska's defensive front is awesome. Penn State, we know how talented they are, and blocking Abdul Carter will be really interesting for these tackles. But it has been a great start. He's been as physical, as athletic as his staff advertised during the offseason. And this was a guy that I thought was a depth add. And he's turned into one of the best transfer additions they've made of an offseason that was full of them. Like this, looks like an NFL player, probably at guard, but he looks like a potential NFL player. I don't think any of us were thinking that when they went and got him. It was like, oh, this guy could be your 6th, 7th, 8th offensive lineman. For him to be right now your top 2 offensive lineman with your other transfer tackle and J.C. Davis, what a huge find. What a huge find for them. Of course, he's got bigger tests, but really passed the first one really well against Kansas. And of course, he dominated against Eastern Illinois. I'll give a defensive guy that neither of us probably thought was going to have a chance to start until the last practice we saw. He was still repping with the first string. I know Terrence Brooks is kind of a talk right now, but Caleb Patterson has been pretty dang serviceable. And dare I mention above average at cornerback so far this year, especially as a tackler. We know the play he made against Luke Grimm, but he's been really physical in run support. And I know he lets his guy get loose a little bit, right? Like Torrey Cox does not let his guy get very far from him because he's so quick, but obviously he's at a size disadvantage. But Caleb, like guys can get a little loose from him if you give him time to throw, but he doesn't let them really get behind him. Like he does keep them in front of him, makes the tackle. So I still have some questions about him in coverage, but he is a physical good tackler, and I think he's been really reliable in what they do. So while I know Terrence Brooks is more talented and probably more of an NFL prospect, it's obvious they trust Caleb Patterson right now. And I think he's earned that trust through 2 games to where it's like, if this guy has to play, you feel like he can be a solid part of the secondary. Maybe not a star of the secondary, but a solid, consistent part of it.
Yeah, you're right. He's been serviceable. That play he made on Luke Grimm, I know you and Jay broke it down better than anything I'm going to ramble on about here for 15 seconds. The recognition of that, as Corey Parker mentioned, like kind of that drive for 5, as they call it, get your chest in him, 5 steps, push him. That was a huge play. As Jay mentioned, that was a turnover, right? Like you count that the same as you would count a turnover. Massive play, coverage. Looks like a guy who hasn't played a lot of snaps in coverage, right? He's athletic, he's quick, he's fast, he's faster than quick. We know all of those things. What's that look like as he starts banking away more snaps? Central Michigan likes to throw it, right? They like to throw it deep. They're probably going to target him. He's been targeted a decent bit. He's given up some catches on those targets. But if you would have told me 2 months ago that Caleb Patterson's going to start corner, I would have been like, I've got like 6 questions before I even get to the fact that, like, is that good for you? Like, is that good for Illinois? And he has made it so. I still expect Terrence Brooks to play this season. I think it's very clear to me they've challenged him with consistency. They've challenged him with being, Corey Parker, not talking specifically about Terrence Brooks. I think it was about Terrence Brooks. Basically said in practice, the guy who makes 3 or 4 plays, 4 or 4 plays, that's how you build dependability, consistency. You don't have to waver on what you want, right? Because you have one cornerback that's just getting exposed or picked on all game long and it's hurting you. You can let this process play out at a good rate. And then when Terrence Brooks is kind of proven that consistency, that dependability, now you've got a rotation. Now you can mix and match however you want to do that at corner. What Caleb Patterson has shown through 2 games, and this isn't Eastern Illinois and I don't know, pick a bowl over low group of 5 school, right? Like to do that against Kansas, that really told me something.
Yeah, because like watching the game live, it felt like he was getting targeted a lot. He got 7 targets in that game. So they were throwing at him. They were attacking him. That's a really good Kansas passing attack. And at the end of the day, in 7 targets, you give up 4 catches for 48 yards. And I think this is really an interesting stat from PFF. Only 5 yards of yak. Like that means he's tackling, wrapping up, getting him down to the ground. So yeah, you're giving up a couple first downs, you're giving up some catches, but you're limiting that. So I do think he's been reliable. Like he hasn't made huge plays outside of the tackle, but like he's not making plays on the ball quite yet. But Lawrence Arnold's a really good wide receiver. Quentin Skinner's a really good wide receiver. Like that's a really good passing offense. And I thought he held his own. And I'm encouraged by that.
I'm with you. I will go do one more. I'll take a defensive guy. How can you not say Xavier Scott at this point? Like, I feel so dumb saying that because our expectations for Xavier Scott coming into this season were high. He's a guy who was a starter a year ago. He got valuable minutes or valuable snaps. I'm not in basketball here, Jeremy, not yet. We don't even have to talk about basketball yet. That's what Illinois football. That's the impact of the Kansas win. Yeah. He got valuable snaps as a freshman, but he is looking more and more like kind of that next person and the next defensive back for Illinois. Yeah, Quan Martin vibes. Brett Bielema today is like he can play here, he can play there, and it's like, wait a minute. Ryan Walters was saying this 2 years ago about Quan Martin, who's now entering 3 years ago, I guess, at this point, entering his second year.
Are you saying he's the Illini's Roy Kent? Is that what you're saying?
That he's here, he's there.
He's
never. I'm not allowed to curse on here. You've made that very clear to me. So yeah, maybe. I mean, just his versatility. Like sometimes I roll my eyes, Jeremy, when Aaron Henry will do we have defensive backs here. We don't have safeties. We don't have. I'm like, dude, whatever. He's clearly a star or a corner, whatever you want to look at. But that versatility, man, he just looks like he's taken the step. And we'll see. That's obviously through 2 games, and that's got to go forward. But he looks like that anchor of a secondary that we thought, is that going to be Matthew Bailey? Is that going to be Terrence Brooks? Is that going to be Miles Scott? Looks like it's Xavier Scott. And we had heard about his leadership all offseason. What a step forward for him.
Yeah. I want to add one more defensive player, Tyrod Edwards. I think he's been really good. I know PFF didn't grade him very well. I know Illinois gave up some yards on the ground. Watching the film, I liked what Tyrod did. One, he's giving you pass rush. Value. He leads the team with 4 pressures. I would not have had that through 2 games. So I do think he's getting a nice push in the middle of that, pocket, which is really important and forces the quarterback off things. He's also got a couple stops, which is basically, stopping the guy for a negative play. I just think he's been solid, and he's playing tons of snaps. He's playing about 70% of snaps right now, which is hard for a nose tackle. That's way more than most guys have played at nose tackle. So they trust Tyrod Edwards a lot. I think he's been a great leader from everything we hear. So I just wanted to give him a shout out because I do think he's been really good. I thought Dennis Briggs had a really good second half last game as well. So I know they're not racking up huge stats there, but I do think the veteran defensive linemen, and I would include Seth Coleman and Gabe Ackus in that, but Tyrod Edwards and Dennis Briggs Jr. have been really solid. And Tyrod has taken his game to another level. So that's been good to see because they did have somebody to replace in Denzel Daxon, who is on an NFL practice squad right now.
Yeah, we had heard a lot in the offseason about them wanting to maybe improve the pass rush value of Tyrod Edwards, and you've seen that through 2 games. I kind of made fun of PFF because I don't always love taking PFF grades on a game-by-game basis, right? Like, first of all, the stats are infinitely more valuable than the grades, but I like the grades over more of a body of work, 4 games, 5 games, whatever. You think back, like Sidney Brown, PFF inexplicably hated him. Like they had like a vendetta against Sidney Brown for something. I don't know what. And obviously, that didn't really age very well. I'm not saying it's the same thing with Tyrod Edwards, but like his grades don't reflect. I thought that when I saw the grades, like he played way better than this against Kansas, just in getting up the field, being that pass rush, having that value. He's not a pass rusher. I don't think we should go that far yet in saying that, Jeremy, but they really hyped him up as a guy. They were really loading him up with confidence. They were hyping him up to us. And through 2 games, as much as that position in particular, like that is not a position that's going to jump off the screen more times than not. But for as much as it can, I thought he's looked really, really good.
Hey guys, fall is right around the corner. That means kids back at school. That means the schedules get a little busier. And that's why there's no better time to check out Factor. Fuel up for all these busy days with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for the fall with a great menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. And Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. So make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. And you can crush your wellness goals with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. Make your day delicious, too. From breakfast to dessert, stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. And you get to keep your kitchen time to a minimum. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. So enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. So head to factormeals.com/Illini50 and use code Illini50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code Illini50 at factormeals.com/Illini50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. All right, question number 3. Will Khalil Valentine steal more reps at running back, Joey. The surprise of the offense last week might have been that Khalil Valentine was getting these clutch reps late in the game. Now, it only ended up being 8 carries for 25 yards, but anybody who watched it, there's some big runs, some big third down runs on that one, showed some quickness. So do you think he's going to steal some reps from some of the other guys?
I was thinking about this earlier this week. Does it not feel too early to you to think that? Like, it feels too early for me to think that, even though I recognize the magnitude of the moment they trusted him in. And like, to put him in that 4-minute drive to ice away the game and to use that quickness, I'm like, okay, maybe this should tell me more than what it is. But I still think you look at your guys like Caden Fagan, Aiden Lawfrey, guys that have kind of banked away that trust, those reps, put Josh McCray in that mix. Was he steal reps? I mean, maybe a couple here or there, but I still think you have your guys as of right now that you trust. Now, if he comes against Central Michigan and gets 10 handoffs, then I'm completely going to pivot off of that. I just think that you kind of – Caden Fagan is the lead guy in this, right? I think they like what Aiden Lawfrey, an older, probably bigger version, similar skill set-wise of Khalil Valentine, can give them. I just hesitate to go that far yet.
Here's where I'm willing to go. If you were to tell me he gets the 3rd most carries among these running backs, I'd be on board.
Okay.
Nothing against him. I like the kid. But Josh McCray has not been the same player since 2021. And so far this year, I got a huge missed tackle force stat. He has 0 missed tackles forced in 7 carries. You need to have 1 or 2 in there. Like, there's just not a lot of dynamic ability that I have seen in him. Of course, he's a veteran, has a lot of snaps, has earned their trust. But at some time, your running back has to make plays, and I just haven't seen that ability. This stat does stick out to me. Who do you think leads the team in missed tackles forced right now, Joey?
Is it Caden Fagan? Are we talking running backs?
The whole team. Like, of the ball carriers.
Pat Bryant?
What? No receivers.
It
is Khalil Valentine with 4 missed tackles forced in just 13 carries. Luke Altmaier is second with 3 in 7 carries. Caden Fagan has only 2 in 32 carries. Aiden Lawfrey has 2 in 13. All right. So it's just, he has made people miss when some of the other running backs haven't done that quite as yet so far. And that's like, you think of it, some of those carries, like, Kansas knew he was getting the ball. So that is something to watch moving forward. I think to steal reps right now come a little bit at Aiden Lawfrey's expense. And do I think that's going to happen after one game where Aiden Lawfrey had a drop pass and apparently had another soft tissue injury? If he's fully healthy, I still think he's going to get the chance. He's going to get the opportunity. He had a really strong offseason. Caden Fagan is the number 1 back. He's still going to get 15 plus touches. I do think he needs to be more decisive. Some of those things maybe come with experience, but I still think he's going to have a really, really good year. But Khalil has shown something. I'm concerned he's 180 pounds, right? Like, he is thin when you see him. And Aiden Lawfrey's 205. Obviously, Caden Fagan's 250 pounds. So I just do think Aiden Lawfrey has a little bit more ability to break tackles potentially, but he's got to do it. He's still got to show it. He's still kind of an unproven guy in himself. So the fact that Thad Ward wanted to put him in that moment, the fact that Thad Ward had trust in him to do it, Khalil's going to play, and I think he's going to get some reps. I'd be fine if it's top 3 running back right now. I'm not quite there with replacing Aiden Lawfrey because I think Aiden still has a lot to show, and I think he's going to be big this season.
First of all, look at this idiot saying Pat Bryant, trying to guess that. That was about the dumbest thing I could have said. Would your answer change if Khalil Valentine was here in the winter and he had that strength leading into spring, summer?
I feel like that's the biggest thing he's missing because his burst and quickness is obvious. And he did show some toughness with those runs. Like, it's not like he just got bowled over. But yes, because he would have had those reps. The other thing you got to be concerned about, Joey, can he pass block? Can he protect? That's a huge part of running back play that we never talk about, most of us. And fans don't think about for the most part. Like, you have to be able to pass protect if you're going to be a lead back. Caden Fagan has been very good at that so far this year. Aiden Lawfrey, I think, has been solid so far. Khalil hasn't gotten a lot of reps probably doing that. I think that's going to be really important for him to get a lot of reps. So that's another reason I'm not there yet of being like, yep, it's Khalil Valentine. He's the number 1 or number 2 back here.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of space between, hey, he does things and he hits the hole decisively. And wow, that was a big moment against Kansas to give him the ball all the time. You know, him, Caden Fagan, let this thing rock all the way into November. There's a lot of space there. But I don't mean, Jeremy, to minimize the moment that they trusted to put him in. That was very telling, very eye-opening. I mean, we didn't know, you know, kind of given what they had, like, is he going to be a redshirt candidate? Just understanding that Caden Fagan, Aiden Lawford, Josh McCray, maybe Jordan Anderson. And now it's like, all right, they clearly trust him in ways that I didn't realize going into last week.
Yeah. He's talented. I will say this. I thought the offensive line performed way better on that final drive too. Like they were rolling at that point. Number 4, Joey, what lingering concern area would you most like to see fixed this week against Central Michigan?
Running inside. Like that interior run game has to be our answer here, right? And like Eastern Illinois very clearly geared up to stop that. And I just think at times Kansas, Illinois just didn't execute very well, whether that was the offensive line, whether that was the running backs not being decisive and going at, you know, going into the holes that were created for them. That is just like, that's not one of those things you can just skate by if you can't do it at a level that's trustworthy, right? Like that is a staple for what they want to do offensively. Like you've got to get that cleaned up. I'm not saying break inside zone runs for, 30 yards, right? But you've got to be able to stay, 4 yard, just really move that. And Central Michigan should open the door for you to do that at a higher level and kind of build that. I don't know if confidence is the right word, but kind of get that thing back on track.
Yeah, they've allowed about 380 rushing yards combined to Central Connecticut State University and FIU. So this is not a good run defense. You're playing against Central Michigan. Now, I'm not going to have some false. If that run game's fixed, if they run for 180 yards in this game, but it should get some confidence. My biggest concern there has been some miscommunications on the interior. And, Josh Kreutz is second-year starting center. I'm not putting it all on him, but Cy Chrysler is a third-year starting guard. Josh Geske is a second-year starting guard. Like, that shouldn't be a big problem. And I thought it was a problem against Kansas on multiple plays. So I'd like to see that cleaned up, and they need to execute their blocks better. I also think there's part of Barry Lunny here too, where it's like, you need to set this run game up for success. I thought they were a little predictable last game because it's clear Illinois does not like to be in 2nd and 10, right? Like, so they are going to run the ball a lot on first down. I think you got receivers that you can throw the ball on first down to set up 2nd and 4 or 2nd and 6, right? Like I think you can use that as an extension of the run game that can soften up a defense a little bit more. So I think that's another area where I'm interested to see how Barry tries to get that running game going through his play calling. If it's, different play calls for this guy, or, is it setting up the run by passing the ball? I'm interested to see if they do that. The other thing with this game in particular, Central Michigan's got a really good return game. They returned 2 kicks, a kick and a punt for a touchdown. They have Marion Lukes, who's a really good kick returner, all MAC the last couple of years. So that needs to be good this weekend. And there have been a couple where, the opponent has had a couple good returns. But this week, I'm really interested to see the pass rush, Joey. Because last week, I'm not going to judge the pass rush because they really weren't trying to sack Jalen Daniels all that often. They were just trying to contain him. And they did a great job of that. But Illinois has 2 sacks through 2 games, not a lot of pressures. Central Michigan's going to drop back and pass a lot. And Joe Labus is a guy who sits in the pocket for the most part. He can move a little bit, but he's a former 4-star prospect, Iowa transfer. He's got talent, but he's going to sit in that pocket, man. And I want to see them get after it. I want to see Aaron Henry get after it with the blitz packages. You don't need to spy the quarterback this week like last week. And I just want to see Seth Coleman, Gabe Backus, Alec Bryant, Dennis Briggs Jr., T.Ry Edwards. I want to see those guys win one-on-one battles. Where's the sign? Did you leave the sign in the other room?
I did. I was going to ask you at the 5-minute mark to pause it when I was going through the rundown because I needed to go get the sign.
I will pause it right now. Okay.
Okay.
Go for the record, Joey. I'm disappointed in you. Oh, and it's upside down. This is perfect.
Dang it. Don't you know how to screen share? Is it on screen? This is terrible.
Yeah, go Barn. I was leaving that name for you.
The second and final appearance of the sign that I can't figure out. Make it pop up on the screen with your computers and technologies.
I want to see those guys win some battles. I want to see a couple sacks this weekend, just to make you feel better going into a game against Dylan Raiola, against Drew Aller. Raiola can move, obviously, but like those guys are mostly pocket passers. Like I want to see these guys start to eat a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you, and the opportunity should present itself there, right? They like to throw the ball downfield. That takes a second to develop. Seth Coleman, Gabe Akis, those two, like your table's ready, right? Like go get those sacks. How do they deploy Gabe Akis this week? Because I thought he played more at that outside linebacker spot against Kansas than that defensive line. At this point, I'm just like, was EIU real? You know what I'm saying? Like, was that one of those where they're just like, all right, let's just get crazy, play about half and half with his hand on the ground, but we really like him more as an outside linebacker, or was it just what Kansas presented that they had him more outside?
Well, Kansas, most of the game, they had a 4-man front, right? So I understand you put your 4 best guys out there, but if they do have a 5-man front in this game against Central Michigan, it's where I'd like to see him on the interior a little bit more. Now, I think they're going to go back and forth, but I just feel like that's your best pass rusher. I think that's how he's best as a pass rusher. And I know I keep saying this over and over again. I talked about it with Jay, but I love him at that position. I love him at that 4-eye, going interior on the guards. He gets one-on-one matchups with guards, and they just can't handle him, both power and quickness. I'd like to see it more. So if they do go 5-man front this game more often, I'd like to see it because it gets Alec Bryan on the field too, gets your boy Joe Barna on the field too. And I think those guys need to get more reps because, again, I just think that's your best 11 that's on the field. But they went with 2 linebackers a lot last week, and they were successful in doing it. All right, number 5, blank will have a big game against Central Michigan.
I'll go first. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah,
Malik Elsey.
Love it.
I think last week against Kansas, that was a pretty low possession game. If you go back and what they have 9 offensive possessions, that was a low possession game. They did not cycle. I didn't think Eastern Illinois was going to be reflective of how many receivers they used. I don't think Kansas. The true number of receivers is somewhere in the middle there. And because of that, Malik Elsey is going to fall into that. He's a deep ball guy. Like they can hit deep balls with him. It's not just him. It's obviously Pat Bryant. You saw Zachary Franklin. But this kind of feels like a game. You're obviously going to try to establish the run. Let Luke Altmaier find this dude deep, right? Like let him try to throw it to him. The snaps don't reflect how much of a role I think he's going to have in the rotation. Last week's snaps, that is. So I think it sets up for him.
All right, so Illinois had 59 offensive snaps, which you do this every week. That's low, right? Pat Bryant played 54, Zachary Franklin 48, Kadari Wilcher 19. Of course, he plays the slot. Colin Dixon played 13. He plays the slot. Malik Elsey played 6 snaps. That was mostly because of what Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin were doing, right? And it was hard to take those guys out. Plus, they should have been rested given all the 3 and outs that were happening. So I like that one. I know this is kind of easy, but for me, it's Miles Scott. Joey, he's doing the Illinois free safety thing. Like he's doing it. Kendall Smith, 5 interceptions. Kirby Joseph, 5 interceptions. Miles Scott's already matched last year's interceptions. And this is such a playmaking position. And Central Michigan, Joe Labus, he's got an arm, man. Like he can really throw it deep. And they got a couple wide receivers that are pretty good. But Joe Labus plays like Rex Grossman. He doesn't see a deep ball he doesn't like. He's thrown 13 passes of 20-plus yards. That's 10th most among FBS quarterbacks so far this year. He's thrown 3 touchdowns on him, but he's also thrown 2 picks. And I just think Miles Scott in that role, Labus is going to get locked down on his deep wide receiver, his deep option. Miles is going to read him in that role and get another pick. And maybe it could be a multi-interception game. We're talking about Miles Scott as the interception leader in the country through a couple of weeks. I just think this is the perfect matchup for him. But you can't get beat because Labus can beat you over the top. It's one thing Miles Scott has definitely been very good at is not letting people get over the top of him and playing that role really well. But he's obviously taking his playmaking to another level. So he's going to be a big player in this one. I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he and Xavier Scott are roommates. They should keep that belt at home, keep the Mayhem belt at their house, apartment, wherever they live. Yeah, that's a good call, Jeremy, because this opportunities are going to be there for him to go and make those plays. And he really has, like Brett Bielema talked about it on Monday. Physically, he looks a lot different. He looks like a guy who has been a defensive back for more than a minute and a half, like he was last year when he started the season. And I think that you can just see that he's comfortable back there. And I maybe said it here last week or post game. I talked to Sidney Brown prior to the game to talk about Matt Bailey. And he pointed out, which isn't entirely surprising, but to have those three, let's call them safeties, the star, the free, and the boundary safety, to have those guys all working in tandem is what makes this thing go. It's what makes each of those positions, why Kendall Smith can have those interceptions, or Sidney Brown can be that playmaker, and Quan Martin can play in the box like that. And I think they have that right now, which is why I also don't know that they're going to move Miles Scott out of that star position, even though Xavier Scott, even though Tyler Strain is healthy, he's been back practicing. Why would you move that when there's a continuity there? Those three safeties have a continuity with one another that is allowing them to make those plays. I think Miles Scott, you're right, given how much they want to push that ball downfield, he's kind of sitting on a Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week possibility, right? If you go out and get a couple interceptions.
All right, last question, number 6. If possible, what rotation/depth piece would you like to see more of this week? Joe Barna, for people who are listening.
It's Joe Barna, yeah. Joe, I mean,
you heard the sign. All we need now is to hear the sign, and we know.
I know. I don't want to say Joe Barna. Like, I do like the opportunity of Gabe Ackes' hand in the ground and Alec Bryant, Joe Barna playing on that edge possibility. Look, I mean, here's the thing. You like these games, these bye games, which this is, right? Like, it's kind of where young players, fringe rotation players, depending on how tight the game is, it's where they thrive. And even rotation players figuring it out. I think back to like Wally Batiku in 2019, he feasted on these guys. And like, those are valuable reps and confidence builders for a guy like a Joe Barna to go out there and to make those plays. I don't know if he's actually the best answer, but I would like to see that.
I had Malik Elzy and Kenari Wilcher on this one. I'd like to see Kenari Wilcher get a few targets. There was one play where Altmaier got blitzed. I thought he could have gotten rid of it, but Kenari Wilcher was really coming open on a deeper drag route that I think would have been a big play. And I just want to see the ball in his hands down the field. I just feel like I haven't seen that quite yet. And Malik Elzy, just to get more reps. I think it's a great game for him to be able to do that. And staying on the offense, of course, you'd love to see Donovan Leary at some point. Like, just getting him against and I'd like to see him throw it a little bit against a better opponent. Can you do that? I don't know. Like, you'd have to be up big in the fourth quarter to do that. And Brandon Henderson, because I do think they need more depth. He needs more reps. And I think at some point, if your interior continues to struggle, Brandon Henderson could be a guy that goes in there. I have Terrence Brooks on this list, Joey. Are we going to see him?
It sounds like he has been practicing better. Brett Bielema said that on Monday. That it's consistency. Like, I know people hear that and they're like, oh, well, okay, well, what's really going on here? I think you've got to earn that trust and trust through consistency with your teammates, with your coaches. Like, I don't think that's just a line that we're being cut. I truly think that's the answer, is just making those, as we talked about earlier, 3 of the 4 plays in practice, 4 of the 4, just being dependable. Brett Bielema, like, tough, smart, dependable is kind of a cliche, right? Maybe at this point in year 4, you're like, all right, yep, got it. But it matters. It matters to them in terms of what they do. So if he's had this week of practice where he kind of continued, this was last week, Brett Bielema said he had his best week, but I would assume that's carried over. Yeah, you should see him out there more and more and more. And I want to caution, when we talk about Terrence Brooks, I don't think all of a sudden it's like, okay, they depend on him. You're a starter, right? Like, I think you still are going to see that play out through game reps. And maybe as that goes, you pick up a head of steam and those reps increase.
Let's be honest. Got a good thing going in that secondary.
Aaron Henry said it right. This is not a problem he had a year ago, right?
Yeah, I know it's been more of those safeties in the start position, but those corners have been – Kansas was not easy, guys. And the one big play they gave up, like, I mean, the pass to Luke Grimm for the touchdown. I just tipped my cap to Luke Grimm and Jalen Daniels. That was a great play. I figured there'd be more of those, but the Lawrence Arnold touchdown, Torrey Cox kind of got run over on that play. Was a flag? I don't know, but like he just kind of got run over and fell down. And then Caleb Patterson gave a few first downs, but like it's been a good thing. Like those corners have been solid, and the safeties in nickel have been awesome. So I don't know if they want to mess with a great thing, but I would like to see him get a series or two. That'd be cool to see if he's gotten any better. And I think it would be a sign to the staff. But you're right, Joey. Like he's not sitting for no reason. Like they brought him in here to make an impact, but they have obviously not seen enough consistency in practice. I know it's a boring word for fans, but if you blow a coverage, right? Like,
in this defense, that's 6.
Yes, because you're playing so much man-to-man. Like you can't blow coverages and things like that. So if they don't feel like he's giving them the best chance to win, then he's not your starter. Now, maybe he eventually gets that. And I think it says a lot about Caleb Patterson, Torrey Cox, even Jaheim Clark, and this staff that they can send a message to Terrence Brooks, being like, you got to be better. Like you are an NFL prospect if you live up to your potential, but you have to do what's right for the team too. Like you got to be able to be reliable for the rest of us. So yeah, like the fact that he's like a second string cornerback, it's probably a pretty good thing for the secondary right now. It hasn't been a problem.
Yeah, I'm with you. Can I give one more? Or I guess one position. I don't know how you want to sort through this. They are redoing my roof right now, my apartment, and there is just stuff falling all out the window. What a nightmare. There's like a 2x4 just went down.
I haven't heard anything yet, so hey.
I know I was really worried about that this morning. One of the nose tackles, is that Jeremiah Warren or is that Anichi Sledge or General Hunt? Because we've seen a good deal more than I thought we'd see, given you added General Hunt, given you added Anichi Sledge. We've seen a decent amount of Jeremiah Warren here, Jeremy, through 2 games. Who is behind here? Like who exactly is your number 2 nose tackle?
You actually gave me a reminder. I should probably update that. I updated the depth chart earlier in the week. I should probably put Jeremiah Warren in that backup nose tackle position.
That's how it's played out through 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
That is such an interesting position to me. Which one of those 3 guys? Maybe we should just limit it to. I mean, haven't seen any more of Sledge really than we've seen of General Hunt, but you're going to need that position moving forward. Like you can't just get by on T-Raw Edwards at nose playing 70%, at least maybe not ideally. So I'm really curious about that particular part of the rotation. And if you want to stay on the defensive line really quickly, outside of Briggs and Gabe Akis, who's really holding up physically right now? Alex Bray looks like he still needs more time in the weight room. I like his pass rush value, but he's getting moved on some of these possessions. Pat Farrell, Ezekiel Holmes in that same conversation. So like that whole defensive line rotation, I still want to see what that looks like as more of a body of work that's displayed.
Depth is my biggest concern on the defensive line. I've actually been encouraged by the starters and how they've done. And Gabe having that versatility is encouraging. But if they have an injury up there, man, that's nerve-wracking. Like that's pretty nerve-wracking. All right, before we get out here, just a few notes. Illinois 16-6 all-time against MAC opponents. Central Michigan 6-29 all-time against Big Ten opponents. The last time they beat a Big Ten opponent was at Purdue in 2014. And yes, this game is on Peacock with Jack Collinsworth, Michael Robinson. Last time he was probably in Memorial Stadium, he was running for like 300 yards. Penn State just crushing Illinois in 2006. So yeah, it is on Peacock. If you don't have it, I'm sorry, or you can just go to the game.
Yeah, I think we've kind of exhausted. Like I get it if you don't have Peacock. I've kind of exhausted it. Man, that's a bummer. It's been around for a couple of years. Kind of is what it is. At this point, it's a staple of college football watching.
Big Ten now.
I do want to bring up. I did a little bit of research. Believe it or not, this is not usual.
Is this a new segment to end the 6-pack? Is Joey Wagner's research?
Oh God, can you imagine? It's just be a list of my recruiting in NCAA 25. That's what I'm going to close most of these 6-packs with. MAC opponents in Champaign, Jeremy. Toledo, obviously, we remember that. Eastern Michigan in 2019 didn't go well. Kent State in 2018 put up a fight, right? Western Michigan in 2016. I guess my point,
Demolished Illinois.
right? Like, I guess my point with this, I don't think Central Michigan's last season's Toledo. That was a good team. I think Toledo's probably pretty good once again.
They're more like 2018 Akron.
I will also say 2023, 2024, Illinois is not 2016 to 2019 Illinois.
Correct.
Like, all of those things can exist to be true at the same time. I guess I'm just kind of over it, just what Brett Bielema and this coaching staff have done with this program. I don't know that I understand all the hand wringing for teams that are projected to finish where Central Michigan's projected to finish in the MAC. Like, Illinois is a 20-point favorite. Even Eastern Illinois people were like, there were a few people who were like, hey, could this be some? Oh boy, could this be a problem? And I think some of that was just nerves, right?
Not nerves, like from fans. I haven't seen that as much.
No, maybe not with Central Michigan, like fan nerve. I just don't feel it, right? Like, maybe there's someone somewhere who's like, hey.
And that's what makes you nervous now. It's like there aren't a lot of nerves coming in.
Like, that's, man, this program's just elevated where you don't have to freak out like that in a week 3. And I'm not trying to be like, hey, Illinois is going to steamroll Central Michigan on their way to Lincoln, Nebraska next Friday, because like this is still a college. Like, Central Michigan is still a team, right? Like, they're still gonna. There's a chance they could put up a fight here, and they could still
are still a team. Yeah,
no, so dumb. They could make some of those big plays where you're like, whoa, all right. Like, all of a sudden you're cooking a little bit there late in the first half or early second half. It's just different. Like, I just feel different that you're not.
Yeah,
have to really, really like entertain a big thought about an upset in Champaign.
Yeah, like I think Central Michigan's going to score some points and get the ball in the end zone. Like, I do think they're going to score a touchdown on like Eastern Illinois, right? Like, they're going to have a play or two where they can do it because they do have some weapons in the passing game. They got a good return game. Like, they have a few talents that I think can play at the Power 5 level. But yeah, Illinois, like, I just think they're at the point with this roster, what they've done in the offseason with the transfer additions, which I'm going to continue to harp on. I think there's a hell of a transfer class for Brett Bielema. Zachary Franklin already is clearly helped you win a game. Melvin Priestley and JC Davis, what they have done. Torrey Cox, I don't want to overlook him. Like, he's been really good. Dennis Briggs, a starter on the defensive line. So I get the focus on Terrence Brooks, but like they've added some big time players from the transfer portal. Like, yeah, if you were having to play Alex Bray all the time and having to play a bunch of young guys who've never done it before, I'd be a little bit more nervous in this game. But I also think we haven't even mentioned this guy. Luke Altmaier's really good. He's really good.
Luke Altmaier, I understand, like, the middle of the Kansas game, the offense was it was really underwhelming, right? The second, third quarter. The throws that Luke Altmaier made in the fourth quarter were NFL level throws.
The one
that throws to Zachary Franklin down the sideline, that was like Brett Bielema. We say Jordan Love now, but he said Aaron Rodgers like throw on Monday. It was kind of going opposite direction.
No, we say Malik Willis now. That's what we say.
You trash.
Hey, your quarterback might throw for more yards than mine this week, okay?
I hate you. But that, like, the throws that he made, and it wasn't like you go back to Eastern Illinois to find Pat Bryant for that touchdown. He is making next level throws. He's not all of his throws are next level throws. You want to see some of those reads get sped up and get rid of that ball sooner. But man, when he is on and making those in big moments, he looks really stinking good.
Yeah. And I think Caden Fagan is going to be a problem this week for Central Michigan. I think the offensive line is going to come out angry this week in the run game. And Pat Bryant's card, that's a lot for a MAC team to handle, man. And that where you haven't even talked about the defense. Like, Central Michigan's quarterback threw for 5 interceptions at FIU. Illinois has 8 takeaways in 2 games. Like, I feel pretty good about Illinois, but if you show up like Notre Dame and you're looking past them and looking to Nebraska, it's a big game for Illinois just to get that 3rd win because you get to 3 wins, have a ranked matchup, Illinois, Nebraska next Friday on Fox. Hello. Another chance for a huge breakthrough moment for your program. And then you're going to a top 10 team in Penn State. So take care of business. Like, I understand those 2 games coming up are huge, but they're not huge. Like, they're not as huge if you don't win this game. getting a 3-0 doesn't happen very often here. So I think they're pretty focused and locked in.
Yeah, I'm with you. And Brett Bielema is really good at that. He is so good at taking like kind of Underwood levels. Like we've talked about this with Brad, is taking this little thing that's maybe not even trash talk. Underwood thrives at firing his guys up with like trash talk or doubt or whatever the case may be. But Brett Bielema finds these little things to have his team focus on and just drives that thing home for 7 days, right? Or 6 days, whatever it is. And they buy in. Like Eastern Illinois was, hey, this is a state school. They were 8-3. Like he just hammers that home over and over and over again. That I would imagine if you're in that building, it's almost impossible to look anywhere else because he says it so, like as much as he says it to us when we talk to him in the media. Imagine what how often some of those points get driven home over the course of a week in the Smith Center.
And for Aaron Henry, his first thing was talking about his staff, which I thought was a great thing for a leader to do. But the next thing was, we can't have this be a trap game. Like, so that message is happening. Like, hey, we get next week is huge, Friday, but that's going to be 7 days away or 6 days away, right? Like, we have to take care of this day and make sure that what happened in South Bend last week doesn't happen here and derail what we think is building momentum. So if they show up, don't turn over the ball and just play a disciplined game, they'll win. But if they don't, you let Central Michigan hang around and you get to a fourth quarter where you're really, really tightening up, and then you don't know what happens. Kind of like at Notre Dame last week.
Yeah, Brett Bielema can't look ahead to next week, but I can think about the mac and cheesesteak that I'm going to drag you to in the Haymarket District in Nebraska.
Are you going to? That's a conversation for next week. Can't look too far ahead, Joey. But there's chili and cinnamon rolls. Is that their thing?
I don't know. This cheesesteak. This cheesesteak's getting a segment on a 6-pack next Friday.
Sounds good. All right. For Joey Wagner, I am Jeremy Werner. Thank you for listening to the Illini Inquirer Podcast. Give us a follow, rating, review wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on YouTube as well. Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on